Good evening. I am Zenobia Dallas, the chair of the City of Saginaw Planning Commission. Public comments are permitted during the designated time on the agenda. This allows the public to speak to the Planning Commission about issues of general concern in the community. Once you are recognized, give your name and address to the staff member for the record. Speakers shall address their remarks to the commission as a whole and not to individual commission members, city staff, or the audience. Speakers may ask general or specific questions, and those questions will be referred to city staff for appropriate follow-up. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes and may only speak once. Speakers should limit their remarks to business within the jurisdiction of the commission. The public hearing is to address the commission with regard to the subject of the relevant hearing and not to speak on other topics. When the petition, special land use, or site plan approval request in which you are interested is called, please be prepared to speak. Once you are recognized, give your name and address to the staff member for the record. The applicant whose application is the subject of the public hearing or their designated representative shall be the main presenter and will be allowed 10 minutes for their presentation. After the appellant's presentation, others may comment. Again, those speakers shall address their remarks to the commission as a whole and not to individual commission members. Thank you, ma'am. City staff or the audience. Each additional speaker commenting on the public hearing will be limited to 3 minutes. Speakers may only speak once during that public hearing. This meeting is videotaped and recorded, so it's important that only one person speak at a time and the audience observe respect for the speaker. An affirmative vote of the majority of the members present is necessary to grant a petition, special land use, or site plan approval. Recommendations on all petitions, special land uses, or site plans made by the Planning Commission are then forwarded to City Council for disposition. Are there any questions? Seeing none, Staff Zimmerman, we call the roll, please.
Commissioner Zwerko. Here. Commissioner Dallas.
Present.
Commissioner Jones. Present. Commissioner Clark. Here. Commissioner Milne. Present. Commissioner Moore. Present. Commissioner Nash. Commissioner Ostash. Here. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is the approval of minutes from August 23rd, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Support.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from August 23rd, 2022. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Thank you. The approval of the minutes has been passed. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Support, Lord.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. Thank you. Our agenda is approved for this meeting. The next item on our agenda is new business. This is a public hearing. Again, remember the public hearing is to address the commission with regard to the subject of the relevant hearing and not to speak on other topics. When the petition, special land use, or site plan approval request in which you are interested is called, please be prepared to speak. Once you are recognized, give your name and address to the staff member for the record. This public hearing is for case J22-0150, special use permit application for a child daycare center to be located at 618 South 9th Street. Is the applicant or representative present? Please state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes for your presentation.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda Nelson. I reside at 618 South 9th Street. I submitted the special use permit to have a licensed child care home for up to 12 children. The name of the child care is Blessed Child Care because I believe our children are our greatest blessings. I provide quality child care for children in a loving, caring, family setting and safe environment. I also work closely with Great Start to Quality and use the Q&A curriculum. We strive to create and maintain a village for the children we serve. We are currently star rated 3 through Great Start to Quality in the state of Michigan. We could be star rated 4 if we apply again and make adjustments. I've been a child care provider since 2001, so I have the experience and knowledge of the child care program. I became licensed this year. I currently am operating from 1 to 6 children. I have 5 children enrolled, and I have 6 children on the waiting list. I am a parent of 4 teenagers, and I work with families within the community. I've made updates and improvements to my yard. The licensing rules and regulations from the city and the state is to have 1,400 square feet, I believe, and we just fenced off 9,600 square feet, so it's enough room for the children in the yard. And I did make the updates to the yard to make sure that it is safe for the children. No one can get in and out the yard from the front area. It's only access to the back. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone here who would like to comment on this case? Is there anyone here who would like to comment on this case? Is there anyone here who would like to comment on this case? Thank you. Do I have a motion, Commissioners, to close the public hearing? It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. The public hearing is closed. Commissioners, is there a motion to approve case J22-0150, special use permit application for a child daycare center to be located at 618 South 9th Street?
So moved, Moore.
Second, Ostash.
Been moved and seconded to approve the special use permit. Commissioners, is there any discussion or are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner
Yes,
Clark.
I'm asking if this is a location that a child care center has been going on in the past, and this is just for expanding, or is this a completely new location?
Staff?
So she has been operating with 1 to 6 children, and so this is an expansion to her existing.
And the prior use, was that legitimate? I mean, from our perspective?
Yes.
All right. I have no further questions.
Any other questions from commissioners? Thank you. Staff Zimmerman, will you take a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Zwerko?
Yes.
Commissioner Dallas?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Milne?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Ostash?
Yes.
Motion was approved.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the staff presentation of the 2022 master plan. Staff Golan, is your presentation ready?
Yes, thank you. So I want to begin, I know this is elementary, but I think it's important for us to understand this, what a master plan is. And it's a set of goals and policies for the development and formulation of the basis for future zoning, land use, capital improvements, et cetera. So that's within that very introduction of our master plan. And the purpose is to establish some future direction on the physical development. That's kind of a key. What I want to say, though, is what the master plan is not. And the master plan is not a set of programming policies designed to address education, workforce development, public safety, recreation programs, blight elimination, et cetera. Those are typically for those agencies and organizations that are focused in on that sort of thing. This just deals with the physical assets of the community. It's not necessarily a perfect plan. It will continue. It will be a continual process to review and revise as society changes, and to make improvements to the plan. And The other elementary thing that I want to talk about is the difference between a master plan and a zoning ordinance, because there seems to be a little bit of confusion about that. The master plan outlines the vision. The zoning ordinance is the law. That's the thing that's used to develop land as it exists in the present and governs the path to that vision. So for example, this is the zoning map for the city of Saginaw. And so each of the zones has its own regulations, the setback requirements, the height requirements, et cetera, et cetera. That's the law. In contrast, the master plan points to the future in terms of land use. Some of the areas are uncertain as presented in the master plan. There's some transition occurring because of the economy and other factors. So some proposed area designations, like the ones that are starred on this, mixed-use neighborhood, opportunity area, urban venture area, rural opportunity area, those are not zones that are official within the zoning ordinance. They're designated areas that we feel as though potentially need to have more study. And so the work plan within the master plan identifies this need. And in fact, working with representative groups within those neighborhoods is baked into the plan. I circled those specific citations within the master plan's work plan. It says, based upon input from representative group visions, formulate zoning classifications and standards that would define and support the vision, okay? So why is it important for us to pass this master plan? For several reasons. The future changes to the zoning ordinance is justified under the master plan. Our redevelopment-ready community status is potentially at jeopardy if we do not pass this master plan. Future capital improvement plans, as you know, you have to review those in January and approve them based upon the master plan. Our vision for developers and private investors who are choosing sites within a community. They want to know what we envision is suitable for the kinds of development that they're looking at. And finally, we can't apply for grants typically on through many programs without having a master plan. So there's just one more thing that I kind of want to talk about, and that's the confusion. And again, this is confusion between the master plan and the zoning ordinance. And that has definitely fueled a great deal of consternation over passing this master plan. I'd like to briefly go over my thought process for proposing that North Washington Farwell corridor between Roosevelt, Austin, and 10th Street to light industrial. The Planning Commission considered the request by staff to rezone this area during the February meeting. The motion to recommend the rezoning was approved 6-1, and the City Council now has postponed that vote until the master plan is approved. Okay? Perhaps I was premature in suggesting that before the master plan was adopted. But we were in a discussion with an individual who was interested in the area to build warehousing for his company. Nevertheless, we have been in the process of reviewing the master plan for the past year and a half, and that vision for this proposed corridor along North Washington to become light industrial is not new. The future land use map was discussed during our stakeholder meeting interviews in September of last year. It was formally unveiled during the joint boards and commission meeting in October of 21. Planning Commission at their meeting in March was again provided the proposed future land use map and the proposed goals and strategies. The master plan has been released for comment and review since May of 23 of this year, okay? So we have plenty of time to look it over, okay? Here are the decision-making factors that I look at when I'm looking at future land use. The existing land use. This shows what current land use is now. And you can see about 60% of the area north of I-675 is industrial. That's that, oops, I'm not even there, sorry. That's that purple area, okay? If you were to take out the neighborhood east of Veterans Memorial Parkway, we're probably closer to 80% of the area being light industrial or industrial. The proposed area along Farwell is approximately 32 acres within this area. It represents 133 parcels. Almost 70% of them are either owned by the county land bank or in foreclosure. 2 of them are owned by the Housing Commission. There are 12 homes within this area. Those are the ones in the stars. 8 of them are owner occupied, 4 are rentals. And there are 6 existing businesses in there. There are 3 churches, as well as the Juneteenth Creative Cultural Center. The remaining parcels are privately held vacant sites. The current zoning in that area, the R01 stands for restricted office. The red is B2, which is general business, and that follows along between 5th and 6th Street. And the R2 is 2-family residential. Then farther east, you get into the Saginaw Housing Commission development. To the north is M2 industrial. That's where Rifkin Steel is, General Motors Metal Casting, and Redmond Truck, truck part, or truck and auto. So, and then the area to the south is more or less an extension of this mix of zonings. I went back and looked I found a zoning map for 1977. This zoning right here has been there since 1977 and hasn't changed, okay? So all this B2 zone there, that would allow for grocery stores, pharmacies, and gas stations, which I'm told is something that the Northeast neighborhood wants. They could do that right now without rezoning anything. It could happen. So when I look at the location, I also look at the infrastructure and the transportation areas. You got M81, which is Washington. You have the CSX Railroad Yard. You have M13 coming in from the north. You got the I-75 exchange off to the east and 675 exchange to the south. Okay, so I look at that and I think to myself, this is a perfect, attractive area for light industrial because that's an important part of that type of use is the transportation of goods. Okay? Then I look at the market trends and the growth. If you look at this area, these are all the industrial uses that are within that area. And then likewise, if you go east to Buena Vista Township, you can see a significant amount of light industrial properties happening over there. So the rationale behind this begins with the process of assembling properties, establishing light industrial zone to attract suppliers, assembly, and fabricating types of businesses as a way to create jobs and tax base. As a developer, they typically look at shovel-ready sites that do not have to assemble and clear. And if you look at the type of development occurring in BV Township along M81 and I-75, it was felt that we could take advantage of this kind of activity. And furthermore, this area is a major gateway into the city and it would be more inviting if the area were cleaned up and developed. These are examples of light industrial buildings that are envisioned for the area. They're typically metal buildings, often with an office front. They may be warehouses, light assembly, with minimal noise and limited traffic, much less than you would find at a grocery store or a gas station. This follows one of the city council's priorities for the city, which encourages the assembly of vacant properties for economic development purposes. Because these parcels represent new construction, a site plan must be submitted to you, the Planning Commission, and approved. The Planning Commission is required to review the plans and make sure that the development complies with current zoning standards. Those standards include all manufacturing activities shall be conducted within the building, Any storage has to be visually screened from the streets and adjoining commercial and residential properties. And whenever such parking facilities adjoin a residential property or residential street or alley, or a wall or a fence or a planting of such height, character, and design as will meet the approval of the City Planning Commission shall be erected and maintained. These are examples of what I'm talking about. A berm with a tree, you might have amount of vegetation, or you might have a wall. So keep in mind that even though this master plan is adopted for future land use proposals, that doesn't mean the city council will approve a rezoning of that property. There's a chance that this area may not develop for some time. It's just, I'm trying something new, because what has been happening, or what it was zoned there since 1977, isn't getting it. So the existing homes, churches, and businesses that would not be affected by this change, they can remain as is. This is my professional opinion, regardless of, regarding the highest and best use of that property. But ultimately, it's up to the citizens and elected officials to make the final decision. I am recommending for the Planning Commission this evening to pass a resolution to adopt the master plan with staff's amendments and forward it on to the City Council for final adoption. I hope this helps your decision. Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is public comment. This is the time for public comments, which allows the public to speak to the Planning Commission about issues of general concern in the community. This is not the public hearing component of the meeting. Once you are recognized, give your name and address to the staff member for the record. Speakers shall address their remarks to the commission as a whole. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes and may only speak once. Speakers should limit their remarks to business within the jurisdiction of the commission. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the commission about issues of general concern in the community? Please come to the podium, state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. My name is Carly Hammond, 1505 South Washington. First of all, Saginaw CAP would like to invite all of you to a community meeting that we announced today that we are hosting this Thursday. It's going to be at New Life Baptist Ministries at 1401 Janes Avenue at 5 p.m. And we're here to talk about namely the master plan and namely other planning in the city and involving the community in all kinds of city planning procedures. So we have an invite out. You'll be getting some more specific information about that very soon. But the overall purpose of that meeting is to bring community engagement out. Again, thank you all so much for voting at the last Planning Commission meeting when we had a lot of people here to delay this, to allow for some explanation, to allow for some dialogue. So the explanation is definitely, I will say, welcome. I think a dialogue portion is still needed, and I would urge you to use up to those 60 days, all of those 60 days, to consider and explain and take some of this back to the community and have a dialogue about these plans in the master plan so that everyone is aware of what's going on, everyone has an opportunity to speak about what's going on, and everyone has an opportunity to review and talk about alternatives to what's been going on. So in the kind of the past 30 days since the past Planning Commission, I have been conducting a lot of research into green zone, into zoning, into a lot of different HUD grants and CBDG funds and RRCs, a lot of documents that I've reviewed that talk about the north side, past, present, and future, and what to do with that area. So what I noticed was a lot of the green zone being referenced when it was first created as a neighborhood revitalization zone, as a designation that was used to get grants from the EPA. And the EPA report, the 2014 EPA report, which we've been talking about, gave a lot of different, in fact, they gave dozens of pages of recommendations for this area of what they would also consider to give fundings for this area that involved neighborhood-oriented green space that the funds initially were supposed to be used for, and what Saginaw gave in their plan to the EPA to use those funds for, that didn't really happen. There was a kind of difference between returning to nature and hoping people leave versus let's actually develop this area into a way that benefits the community overall, residents who live there, benefits the environment by creating retention areas, berms, doing environmental testing. So there are a lot of options that do not involve industrial rezoning to do with this area, that there are opportunities for the city of Saginaw to get funding and partnerships for funding from many organizations, all the way from local community organizations to statewide advocacy organizations, all the way through Justice 40 projects with federal investment and state dollars that are there right now in the state legislature. So I think that this is a really, really great time for dialogue, and I really appreciate the presentation, and there was some information in there that I was not aware of that I really appreciate, especially what the thinking is behind this proposal and policy recommendation. However, I would urge also taking this presentation back to the community, because this is the first time many people are seeing it. Thank you so much for.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the commission about issues of general concern in the community? Is there anyone else who would like to address the commission about issues of general concern in the community? Is there anyone else who would like to speak with the commission about issues of general concern in the community? Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is old business, which is the 2020 draft of the master plan. On August 23rd, the original motion was made by Commissioner Clark and seconded by Commissioner Moore to approve the 2022 draft master plan with recommendations for revisions or comments. After some debate, Commissioner Moore made a motion to postpone the decision for up to 60 days. This was seconded by Commissioner Jones and approved by the body. We now call for that motion to be taken up again. The motion is now on the floor. It does not need a second. We already have the second. We're open for discussion.
Okay. I'll just make a comment.
Would you like me to recognize you?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Mill.
After Mr. Golan's presentation, I think the most important part I took from that is a certain level of urgency in how the master plan ties into other governmental operation. The redevelopment-ready community status, capital improvement plans, and the ability to present to potential investors and builders what is going to happen in that area. So I'm certainly planning to vote for the passage.
We don't need
of this.
your vote at this point.
Yeah,
If you just have general comments, that would be appropriate.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else would like to have a comment, or is there any discussion from the commissioners or questions? Yes, Commissioner Clark.
Thank you. I thank you to Mr. Gowan for that explanation. I do think it is enlightening and helpful and a reminder to all of us, the citizens included, what a master plan is and is not. And I think that is significant because it does sound like much of the confusion, as you indicated, with those who are unhappy with the plan seem to be thinking that this is a zoning effort, and it is not. While zoning may or may not follow suggestions or recommendations in the plan, it is not set in stone. Things can be changed. Citizens can give additional input. This is a draft, as I understand it, that the council would have to still approve. And as such, it is always open to review, modification, changes, whatever is appropriate in looking at the future vision for our city. I can't help but mention that I travel this area a lot, going through, especially on 81, and seeing what is there. And I see nothing even on the zoning recommendation that would deter me from agreeing that a zoning change would be appropriate. But that's not where I'm coming from for this, because this is a vision. The neighbors in that area, the neighboring jurisdictions, the actual use of that area is either heavy or light industrial right now. And the current zoning would allow more. So I think that we all need to understand that, as Member Milne suggested, the importance of getting this plan in place for the various reasons that are needed, including not losing our designation as a redevelopment ready city, the grant potential issues. It really dictates that we need to proceed as soon as possible with getting a plan in place and we can deal with the issues afterwards of changing in, if and as needed. Thank you, Madam.
Anyone else? Yes.
I just got
Commissioner
a
Eustace?
quick comment to some of the comments that are being made. Our staff has said that it's B2. B2 is not light industrial. Those are two different things in the current zoning ordinances that we have on the books. In talking with the residents in that area, because I have, in talking with other residents in the city, from the southeast side, from my neighborhood, what I have heard on social media, I know that there was meetings that you all have held, and I know what the neighbors were asking for, because that was published.
Speak to the commission, not to the public.
And, thank you. So anyways, I did see on social media what people were asking for, and it's still kind of like a B2 district is what they're looking for, and if you look to the proposed plan, mixed use kind of fits more with what's already being proposed there in the back, because if you look at the map, there's all the mixed use areas with some residential, and then it was that just that light industrial piece, that strip across the top. So with that mixed use area, you're talking prepared food, entertainment, retail, specialty retail, convenience retail, select service offices, housing, lodging, and recreation. Those are some of the things that I'm hearing from the residents that they would like for that neighborhood,
You're talking about for the future land use?
for
map?
the future land use, yes.
Thank you.
And kind of what we've already said, it is already zoned for. I also have a large concern for the city of Saginaw right now, because as Bob, our urban planner, has mentioned, that our redevelopment readiness certification is in jeopardy. And with that, that's a lot of development planning and money through the MEDC that can come back to this city to move this city forward and do great projects. As we have stated in the past, and I'm sure that my colleagues, I think we've talked about it up here at this planning commission table, we're not just gonna put this on a shelf. We're gonna take a look at this every 6 months. We wanna take a look at it. I'm recommending that we look at it in December when we do our SIP plan, which is our community, our capital plan, improvement plan project for the city, so that it doesn't sit, and make sure that we're hitting the marks and making sure that we hit the goals. Again, my major concern is the redevelopment readiness city part of this city. We can look at this again later, but we need to move this forward. So, at the time, I would like to make a motion to amend the motion for the future land use and the master plan draft for the Northeast Saginaw Quadrant Map 16B to change the boundary of the corner of Washington Avenue and 6th Street to the corner of Washington Avenue and 10th Street, to the corner of Farwell and 10th Street, to the corner of Farwell and 6th Street, to the corner of Washington and 6th Street. From proposed light industrial to proposed mixed use. I'd also like to change the boundary of the corner of Washington Avenue and I-675 to the corner of Washington Avenue and 6th Street, to the corner of Farwell and 6th Street, to the corner of Farwell and I-675, to the corner of Washington Avenue and I-675, from light industrial to residential. I think that would suffice with the voices that we're hearing from our citizens, and it's something that I think that we can put down and move this forward so we can start working on it.
This is all associated with the future land use?
Yes.
There's a motion on the floor to amend the future land use map to change the boundaries of the proposed, this is map 16B, to propose some of the light industrial changes to refer to mixed land use?
Correct.
Is that an existing land use, or is it a future land use? I believe it's part of that.
Future. That's part of
Okay.
future.
And then the other portion that's on the other side to revert to residential.
Correct. There's
Okay.
residential just under.
So the difference here is there is a main street that goes through this section of the northeast neighborhood, and that main street is Washington Avenue. So we're talking about the north, is that the north side? The north side is currently zoned, I believe, as manufacturing, and the other part currently is zoned as green zone. So that strip there that we're discussing is on the south side of Washington Avenue. Yes.
There's no green. No.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Whatever the zoning currently is, I don't have the current land use map in front of me. What is it currently zoned? It's a
Well,
mix of
it's
business,
mixed, so there's
restricted office
and
residential.
B2 general business.
Okay, thank you. So that is the section in the question. If everyone has their future land use map.
Yeah,
I think we need a
yeah,
second.
go back to the.
I'm sorry, yes. And we need a second on this amendment before it can be
Oh, yeah.
discussed.
No, that's future.
We need a second on this amendment before it can be discussed.
I second.
Thank you. It's been seconded. So commissioners, are there any discussion about the area that is being addressed as far as the amendment is concerned? Yes.
If I understand the motion correctly, it is suggesting that a strip along the south side of Washington Avenue, all the way to from 675
Pass that
to.
down. This is the strip right here. It's on the future
Yeah.
land use map.
That would be helpful. I didn't think to bring that. I apologize.
Starting.
Okay.
Starting.
The 675 to, what is the avenue again?
You're,
Would you like me to point it out?
just give him the streets. I
Yeah.
think that would be.
Okay, so
appropriate.
basically, from I-675, where you see the light purple,
All right.
all the way up to 10th Street. That light, right, that light purple, we would make that, proposing to make that light industrial. Then from 10th Street over to 14th, you see where the residential in the yellow, bring that residential all the way to Washington Avenue.
Yeah, okay. I can't, I could not support it because I think it's too extensive of a change
All I did was.
and
give
too
the
restrictive. Well,
It's the future land use map, and I understand that.
I understand. I think that's too restrictive to go, I would certainly agree with the first portion. The problem is I don't know, up to, even up to the railroad tracks from 675, those are not, I mean, that's already industrial. I think leaving it as is in the original draft is more viable. It gives, the current draft does not preclude, A, future changes in the zoning that might comply with what you're saying. B, it doesn't preclude the mixed use of most of that area. It's already available in this proposed plan. What this would do is actually restrict it from consideration in future development, and I just can't see that. Most of that whole area is either light industrial already, or office, or heavy industrial. It just doesn't make sense to me to make the Washington corridor itself, which is what this would do, residential. There's so few residences on that section right now that it makes no sense. And I'm talking all the way from 675 all the way to the 81-75 interchange. You probably couldn't count 20 houses in that entire section. And there's a reason for that. People don't want to live there. So I can't, I just couldn't support that.
And I disagree with that comment, but I will leave that. I disagree with that comment in terms of people don't want to live there. I don't believe that's necessarily true.
I'm talking that corridor.
I understand what
Madam
you're
Chair.
saying, but I also say that there are two sides to Washington Avenue, a north side and a south side. And the comment that people don't want to live there is frankly disingenuous, and it demeans the people who are currently living in Northeast Saginaw. So, my comment. Any other discussions on, I'm sorry,
Start with Brenda.
Commissioner Moore?
At the end of the day, there's meetings going on nonstop about this. Nonstop. The meetings can continue. We will take part in the meetings. If we continue to say this is a work in progress, then that means that we need to be communicating. The only thing, and help me understand, because maybe I'm lost as well. Tonight is really to move it to the next phase so that we can begin to move forward, which then opens up a new passage for us, not the old passage where the individual homes that are there can't get any service, but they will be allowed to, with this new movement, to be a part of the whole city in its entirety. If we prolong this any longer, we risk the chance of losing a whole lot more. The individuals who live in that area will still not be allowed to get loans from banks, and even though it's no such thing as they say, it's an invisible name, the green zone. Since a period of time, it has been called that. And I'm talking to the staff now, what I'm hearing is, moving forward would take off that stigma and put it in the Northeast District, the name that it is going forward to, and the individuals in that area would be allowed to apply for anything that they want along with the land.
So, certain loans I think that you're talking about are grants from that CDBG. Yolanda may be able to talk to that better, but some CDBG grants, they're very limited on what they are allowed to, where they are allowed to be provided. But I did want to comment on something that you said about moving forward with this. We actually did have a meeting, was it just last week? Last week, with some individual leaders in the community. So we met with Amos O'Neill, Jared Little, Kareem Bowman, and Larry Campbell. Unfortunately, Rob Brown wasn't able to make it because he had another engagement. Bob gave very similar, the exact same presentation, and we were able to have a dialogue back and forth. I did feel like it was a very productive meeting. Saginaw African American pastors have been meeting about different plans for development, particularly in this neighborhood. And as we move forward after this plan is adopted, as Bob pointed out with the neighborhood groups, we do plan to go into each neighborhood and fully flesh out neighborhood plans. We've actually already been meeting with SVSU for the last, I think we maybe started in the spring, and we were able to get some SVSU students to work on data gathering in the Cathedral District. That was where we were starting. And whether we simultaneously, after this meeting that was so successful last week, also look into the Northeast neighborhood, or we look into the Northeast after the Cathedral District, either way, again, this is the vision. Going into the neighborhood and fully fleshing out the plans is how the rezoning, how the projects and the city is going to be able to really shape what the zoning ordinance looks like.
Okay, you said you met with representatives from the Northeast area?
Yes.
What were their comments about the future land use map?
They did, yeah, it was kind of similar. They understood the way that we were looking at it, but they did feel that only focusing on manufacturing, or that's kind of the overall feeling of what light industrial is, would be ignoring some of the past. One of the benefits of having a type of zone like this is that in the master plan would be that we would be able to zone only certain parcels at a time. So we could look at one block if there was a project where a business owner wants to expand and put in a warehousing, but they only needed 1 acre. We could actually go in and it would not be spot zoning because we are rezoning based off of our master plan. So there could potentially be a mix of uses where there's, maybe two warehousing, and then next to that could be a little bit more general business as it is zoned currently. If we did go to mixed use, we could potentially have, mixed use really is one of those zones that we need to have other subzones underneath of it. So we could also work in something where we can still allow some of that. I just know from the perspective of everything that Bob has shown, and then also being at Saginaw Future, we get requests from businesses constantly for sites and buildings, and warehousing is tremendously huge, and we just don't have buildings. The city doesn't. Whether we want to take advantage of it, and there could be other areas in the city that we look at too, that we, again, digging in further. I mean, it's a tough decision for you guys, I know.
Commissioner Jones?
To piggyback off of what Cassie's saying, a couple years ago, we switched in our annual plan for community development block grant, the concept of green zone. It is called the northeast zone. And then we started talking about trying to assist individuals in that area. So it's not like brand new that we're not trying to help out there. We've already made the steps to try to assist in it. Secondly, as a person who worked on the redevelopment ready community certification, it's important that we keep in mind, like, we are approving a whole plan for the city, not just an area, but the city. And that we need to move it forward, not only to keep our designation as a redevelopment ready community, but also the funds that come with it. That's all I have to say on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Milne.
I just wanted to mention again, some of what the proposal in the master plan with the light industrial zoning is doing is simply recognizing other external factors that we don't control and that are very limiting in what is a good use. In particular, that is a state highway. The state studied that highway and its uses somewhere in the last 5 years and chose to raise the speed limits, and any future development will have more limited access because of those higher speed limits from a traffic standpoint. It recognizes the fact that that is more of a transportation corridor. It is heavy truck, heavy industrial use. In fact, for our own city temporary landfill we use, the average day will see hundreds of double-bottomed heavy trucks passing by there. Any residential use is not correct for that area. So I think we have to understand what we can control and what we can't.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Staff Zimmerman, will you take a vote for the amendment to the original motion?
Can I get a clarification on where that second portion was for residential? Was that extending along 10th Street for those 2 blocks?
Yeah, that's where Farwell is.
Yep. Across
Yeah,
Farwell to
so
Michigan?
basically it's that square,
Okay.
right above the.
Just the 2 blocks?
Nope. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4.
Where's your mouse? The 4 blocks?
Mhm.
Oh, okay, so right above the yellow.
Yep.
So all 4 of those?
This area here,
Okay.
is that correct?
Yes. Yep. That
That
was
was
the
the
proposed code
residential.
of residential, because
And
there's
then the rest
residential underneath
was-
it.
And then all of the rest, all the way to 675 was mixed use?
Correct.
Okay.
That is the amendment. The amendment is to change the
Right.
bottom section to mixed use, and the yellow, or the 4 blocks above the residential section, change that to residential. That was the amendment.
Right.
Yes, I'm sorry, clarification.
Just one comment too, because Staff Zimmerman brought it up. She discussed a term called spot zoning. So for the people that are watching and in the audience today, spot zoning is basically where you take.
Let's not go
take an
there.
ad-
I've
no,
asked for a
okay.
vote. Let's
go.
vote on
Yeah,
the
all right.
amendment. Let's keep
Want some
moving this forward. I
clarification?
appreciate that.
Sorry, I should have explained that.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Bland?
No.
Just,
Commissioner Zawarko?
No.
Commissioner Dallas?
no,
Commissioner Clark?
No.
Commissioner Milne?
No.
Commissioner Moore?
No.
Commissioner Ostash?
Yes.
Motion was denied.
the motion is denied. We are back to the original motion, which is to approve the 2020 master plan with recommendations for revisions or comments. Staff Zimmerman, will you take a motion, a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Bland?
Yes.
Commissioner Zawarko?
Yes.
Commissioner Dallas?
Yes.
Commissioner Clark?
Yes.
Commissioner Milne?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Yes.
Commissioner Ostash?
No.
Motion was approved.
Thank you. The master plan, the draft of the master plan will now go to the city council for voting on at their next meeting. It is time for the adjournment for this meeting of the planning commission. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move more.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Meeting is adjourned at 6:49 PM.